Hansel and Gretel, A Tale of Courage. Once upon a time, there was a poor woodcutter who lived near a big forest with his wife and 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. They were very hungry because there was not much food to eat, and during a time of great scarcity, they couldn't even find daily bread. One night, as they lay in bed, the woodcutter worried aloud about how they would feed their children. His wife suggested a plan. They would take the kids into the thick forest the next morning, light a fire, give them a bit of bread, and then leave them there. She thought they wouldn't be able to find their way back, and it would solve their food problem. The woodcutter was uneasy about this, fearing that wild animals might harm their children, but his wife persuaded him, saying they would otherwise all starve. Hansel and Gretel overheard their parents' conversation and couldn't sleep due to hunger and fear. Gretel cried, and Hansel comforted her, promising to find a way to help. Late at night, while their parents were asleep, Hansel put on his coat, opened the door, and went outside. It was a moonlit night, and he gathered white pebbles that sparkled like silver coins. He filled his pockets with them, then returned to Gretel and reassured her, saying that God wouldn't abandon them. In the morning, their parents gave each child a little piece of bread and led them into the forest. As they walked deeper into the woods, Hansel secretly dropped the pebbles on the path to mark their way. His father scolded him for looking back but didn't realize Hansel's clever plan. Once in the heart of the forest, the parents lit a fire and told Hansel and Gretel to sit by it. They promised to return after gathering wood, but Hansel and Gretel fell asleep as they waited. When they awoke, it was dark, and their parents were nowhere to be found. Scared and lost, they tried to find their way back using the pebbles, and eventually, they reached their home safely. Their parents were surprised to see them, but relieved. However, not long after, another famine struck. Their mother again hatched a plan to abandon the children deep in the forest. This time, Hansel couldn't use pebbles, as their mother had locked the door. But he assured Gretel, saying God would help them. The next day, they followed their mother into the forest and dropped breadcrumbs to find their way back. But this time, they couldn't return because the birds ate the breadcrumbs. Lost and hungry, they wandered deeper into the forest until they found a little house. The house was made of bread, with a roof of cake and sugar windows. Hansel and Gretel were so hungry that they began nibbling on the house. Suddenly, a voice called out asking who was eating their house. They replied that it was just the wind. An old woman, however, emerged from the house and invited them inside, pretending to be kind. She gave them a hearty meal and comfortable beds, but in reality, she was a wicked witch who liked to eat children. The next morning, she locked Hansel in a stable and made Gretel do chores. She planned to fatten Hansel up so she could eat him. She regularly checked on him, but Hansel tricked her by extending a bone instead of his finger. After weeks of waiting, the witch grew impatient and decided to cook Hansel. While she heated the oven, she ordered Gretel to fetch water. Gretel knew the witch's plan and outwitted her by shoving her into the oven and locking the door, where the witch met her fiery end. Hansel and Gretel, now free, took the witch's treasures and set off to find their way home. Finally, they reached their father's house. Their father, who had been miserable since they left, was overjoyed to see them. Their wicked stepmother was gone, and they lived happily ever after.
Did you enjoy the video? Not only did you learn a valuable life lesson, but you also boost your English skills with our stories. Hit the bell for updates. Thanks for watching. Take care.